Welcome to episode 90 of the Weekly Wave, everyone. My guest is Dahmere Epperson, otherwise known as DJ Easy. You may know him from 101.1 The Wiz or from many of his other shows that you can hear in Cincinnati and Cleveland. He is also a grade school friend of mine, a kick-ass basketball player, and a righteous dude. So without further ado, let's get into it. DJ Easy, motherfucker, what's going on, bro?
I'm happy to be here, brother. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, man. Well, it's so crazy when you grow up with people and you have certain expectations of who they are in life.
Yes.
And as time goes on, because of the internet, we get to keep up. And some folks take you on a huge left turn.
Yeah.
And to see the musical route that you found, maybe by the time that we knew each other, but you kind of flourished into, it's been a really cool thing, man.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that I feel I found my actual self. And one thing I can attest to, just growing up with you and watching you, I feel you've always been true to yourself, even from the very beginning. We go back to the recess days.
Yeah, man.
Just you playing guitar, playing for different people, just loving being in your craft.
Well,
I've always admired that.
Well, it's one of those things that, like, music and sports are mediums that we all get to live our lives through, and sometimes it falls in your life earlier, and then some people, they wait till they're 60 years old to pick up their instrument and find out that it means the world to them. But, you're someone that's always had a larger-than-life personality. People gravitated to you because you have a personality that's been warm and interactive and extroverted.
Yes.
So it's cool that you've taken that from being, in our grade school class, you were the jock of all jocks. You were the guy that was hooping on everybody, so I had to get a guitar out if I wanted anyone to pay attention to me, bro.
I literally didn't know any other way other than just to, hey, look at me over here. I'm playing basketball. I'm just as good as anybody else here, or if not the best. I felt like at the time, and I might not have known it then, it was just my way of being seen in the world.
Well, it's cool when you can tell that someone has style in their sport. So many kids grow up with fundamentals, but again, you've always, as much as you may have grown into different mediums, you've always been yourself in that.
Yes.
And I would love to kind of start from there and ask, like, when did sports turn from being the primary in your life to music now being your main thing?
Well, it's funny that you asked that. It all started in high school. My junior year, unfortunately, I have dilated cardiomyopathy in my heart. It's where one ventricle in your heart doesn't pump out as much blood as it's supposed to. Your heart's supposed to pump out around 60% of the blood that it's taking in, and mine was only pumping out about 50, maybe 40% at the time. It's gotten better, but unfortunately, it led me to the spot where I was unable to play sports. So, when you stop playing sports, I feel like just for any athlete, it's like a death in the family. It's like, what do you do after this? I think the biggest thing for me was just figuring out, okay, all I've done is sports since second grade. What is next? What are my hobbies? What does Dahmere like to do? And I figured out I love music. I've always been around music. I didn't realize how much I loved it until I think I was forced to step into a new role or a new understanding of what I love to do.
And how much of your athletic capacity, your process on learning how to grind and go out and drill came into your early music life? Was it your day-to-day practice when you got into that?
I think it was all of it.
Okay.
I played basketball at a high level. AAU, I played all across the country, playing against the best talent. Even in football, we played against some of the top talent in Cincinnati. I think just the way we competed with each other and the way I competed with my peers and just seeing how everybody was able to excel at the things that we did, I think a lot of that carried over into the way that I do music and just my everyday life being in music.
And did you initially step into music as a curator, as a DJ, or were you just listening again and finding a new path in that?
I stepped in as a personality, believe it or not. I always have been around music. I started in concert band. I played the drums as a kid in my church from the age of like 3 till 5.
That's
Um,
awesome.
I just
What a hardcore way to get into it.
it's really different, but it was a hobby. I never really understood that this was something that I could be doing. Just being musically inclined and stepping into music, all sorts of the music. I never really would have thought that 10 years later I would be here today.
And when you say you started as a personality, so you went to Akron for school.
Yes.
Was it the school's radio station or?
Yes,
Okay,
actually. So before I had got to the University of Akron, I just was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I took a bunch of visits to different colleges. I went to OU, I went to Bowling Green, and I went to Akron. Akron had this college radio station that was an FM radio station that was ran only by college students, and I saw it, and I just was like, no one's taking an opportunity to be a part of this. Like, nobody's taking advantage of this. And I really believe that the college radio station that I was on, shouts out to WZIP, Z88.1, they really opened the door for me to be where I am today.
And when you say like you saw less people taking advantage of this program, as a freshman stepping in, did you want unclaimed territory? Did you want to be the person to take this back to the next level?
Absolutely.
Cool.
I acknowledged that no one was here. And I think the fact that we didn't have anyone that was really doing anything in radio really made me want to be the guy who took the step forward and really just excelled in radio in all forms of it, whether it was interviews or it was DJing or it was just simply being an entertaining personality. I wanted to embody myself in music and just media, period.
That's so cool, man. And so what's that first on-air experience for you like?
It's surreal.
What were you doing?
Just simply talking, just coming on, just trying to figure out what a radio personality sounds like. They tell you that it's a college radio station ran by students, but they don't tell you that a lot of the students that are there don't really know what they're doing. They're trying to find their footing as well. So really teaching myself to be a radio personality was probably my biggest hurdle, just listening to other radio personalities and getting a feel for what a radio personality is actually supposed to sound like. I sounded crazy my first time on air, but
and what do you mean by that? Like too much energy, not enough energy? What?
I would say way too much energy. Getting really close to the mic, just happy to be here, happy to be heard, but not really understanding what being a personality was. And I think just learning that and learning how to be a personality and a good personality, that was the biggest challenge. And it's still coming along. It's still a challenge every day, trying to be that personality.
Well, it's a very specific craft. Like being a DJ is one thing. Being an on-air personality, like these are curators in a different respect than we see in most of our normal life. And you and I are probably in that last bit of a generation where all you had was a car radio or your CD if you brought it. So when you get in, you turn on something. And it's crazy that now these days you're on the Wiz, right?
Yes, I am.
It's like the Wiz was the station when we were kids. Like it's crazy to come home and go to the top of the competition tier, and to now recognize that the voices that you heard as a young man, as a kid, are the voices that you are now competing with and bringing back to life in that.
I think it's really weird in that aspect. A lot of the people that I would listen to on the bus or just in passing, they're still there at the radio station. Whether they're on an older radio station, they're still there in some format. So just those being my colleagues, people that I work with on a day-to-day basis now, it's still a surreal feeling every single day.
Yeah, well, I sometimes when I talk to folks of our parents' generation, there's something to be said about if you grow up listening to the radio, folks have a common musical experience that helps to date this summer of 2012 versus 2019. That kind of chronological shared experience helps to cement things versus now when we have our own Spotify rewrapped, and it's just you. It's just you and your phone and what you want to curate for yourself. It's such a different experience. So, how would you say you use that kind of thing to your advantage to now bring back a common musical experience for people?
I think regardless of all of these different formats of music that we can listen to, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, um, podcasts, I feel like everyone needs radio. Radio, whether you like it or not, radio is something that will never die. Now, where I step in is I try to bring those Spotify, Tidal, those curated playlists. I try to bring that to the radio where we're not sounding as we're just playing the same old over and over again. But hey, I'm listening to what's on Spotify, what's on Tidal, what everybody is listening to, and we're bringing it right here. You might not hear it all the time, but when I'm here, you're going to hear it.
And it's such a different world, though, where you're saying radio's never going to die. And I'm someone that I question whether that is the absolute truth or if it's something that the industry still holds on to, because radio is still a monolith. You look at companies like iHeart and whatnot, and it's like they still have a lot of push in the industry. But the glass ceiling for artists and curators like yourself has kind of sifted away. Like if you got on, I forget the Spotify app, but you can do a similar thing to an on-air personality where you can curate your playlist and then record your interjections in between to talk about the artist, about what it brings to you, where you found these people. So there's a new wave of the same kind of personality, but in different mediums.
Let me ask you, do you think curation will change the way that we end up in internalizing music?
Oh, I think it's a good question. Like there was a point in time where someone had to come to someone like you and trust that they were going to bring them new material that they loved. Versus now you can look for those things on your own. But there's also a tendency to stay comfortable in this life. So people just keep going back to whatever's in their search history. I'm guilty of that myself. So I think you're always going to need people that are hungry for reminding you of the hits of the past, the hits of today, the obscurities that are out there. But you wonder where industries keep their grip on certain things. And I don't say that in a negative way, but I'm sure you've seen DJs in the field of radio that are very much holding on to an old way of doing things.
Absolutely.
Versus you're on the forefront of the merger of these things.
So I think it's a fine line, and it's funny that you say that. That fine line, especially when you're going out just to clubs or different places, people like new music. And people complain that new music isn't being played, but at the same thing, people like things that they know, that they've heard before, that they can gravitate towards. So I feel like it's a fine line between playing new music versus playing what everybody knows and what they're comfortable with.
Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to interacting with music, like some people have a hard time hearing a new song for the first time and getting some from it. Like I don't hear lyrics very much on a first listen. I like hearing the other stuff in the music. That's what excites me first.
Yes.
So when I'm playing a club gig, sometimes I have to feed them material that they're comfortable with to get them back on my side. But at the end of the day, I'm probably there to show them, my personal material that they've never heard. So getting them to feel comfortable with new material requires me to throw them a bone every once in a while, Like if I got to play some of the old country classic, Tennessee Whiskey or something like that, that's not a classic, but it's a new classic. And it's like a simple diet for people. It's easy to digest and get involved with. But I think about, my biggest influence is Prince. Prince talks a lot about, days in Minneapolis where he's going to finish something at the studio, go to a club at 3 a.m. in Minneapolis and say, put this on, and that crowd's going to dance to it. And he's going to gauge their reaction to how good the material is. And I feel like there's a little bit of fear in the modern listener of not knowing what they're stepping into because they can give themselves comfort on Spotify and Tidal and Apple Music of just what they know.
Versus letting the figure entertain them.
Exactly.
Or give them something. And I think that's what's missing in modern music right now. The excitement of not knowing, of hearing something new or hearing something that maybe you haven't heard of or might make you a little uncomfortable, but you hear it later on down the road, and you're like, I've heard this a long time ago with such and such.
Yeah. Well, it's such a great point to say, like, you need to earn their trust,
Yes.
and there's something about a voice in between a song where it's like, I know DJ Easy. Like, I
Yes.
feel this guy, and so I trust that when he tells me, like, this is something your morning needs, it's 9:30 a.m. and you're on the drive to work, and you hit me with something fresh, that could be monumental in my year. You never know when
Absolutely.
that song should be the soundtrack of today and forward.
And they heard it from you.
Yeah, that's a special thing, man. How much of a calling did you feel towards that side of it versus, being a DJ in a club and letting the music speak for itself?
I think it comes with time as you get more comfortable with yourself as a DJ. You get comfortable with what works, what doesn't work, and you get comfortable with the craft. You feel more inclined to throw something in there that you know sounds good. This
Mhm.
is a good song, but everybody else might not necessarily know it or even have heard of it. But you feel more comfortable because, hey, maybe you've been throwing them bones all night, you've been killing it.
Yeah,
You can throw that one random song in there that might be something that they're not familiar with, but you can gauge the crowd and see how.
yeah. And how much do you like taking those risks on a live set versus, your on-air sets?
It really depends. Honestly, I like taking more of a risk on the live sets, especially if it's something that I've heard, I'm comfortable in it, and I know that it's gonna be that song that people haven't heard before that's gonna ignite them.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing to do. And then once you're comfortable with your DJ sets, you might have played this song before. You throw it into a live club set. You see a reaction out of people. It all comes with the more that you do it.
Yeah. So what's like the systematic approach to that when you're thinking about, okay, here's my classics, I got a folder of things I know are hits of the 2000s and 90s, but when you're incorporating new material, how do you start to think out the play,
Yes,
formulate when you're going to kick this in?
I would say the best way is to get in the gym.
Okay.
What I mean by getting in the gym is you got to go to the clubs. You got to hear other DJs. You got to hear the best of the best. You got to see what they're doing, what works,
Mhm.
what is working out here. How are they doing it? Why are they doing it? How is the crowd reacting to it? And then you got to, don't by any means, don't steal what other people are doing. You are still yourself. You're a human being. You got to formulate what works for you off of what the actual formula is that other DJs are giving out
Mm.
there.
Well, I feel like that's the DJ community has a harder time with like a copyright infringement when you
Yes.
come up with a new mashup or a new way of doing things, like, because you're already using other folks' material,
Yes.
there's a tendency for other folks to take your material right off the bat and run with that. So there's kind of unspoken rules of that scene. So what's it been like for you as a younger DJ
Yes.
to come in and look at the veterans and try to make that unique approach to it?
I usually try not to step on toes, but I think um that has nothing to do with one or the other. I would say the biggest thing now is mashups. Mashups are definitely becoming a huge thing, and a lot of DJs are making these mashups simply at their house.
Yeah.
Um, just trying not to step on any toes with doing the same mashups or one mashup belonging to another DJ.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is just making your own.
Mm. Well, it's so interesting when you look at, like, the world of DJs comes from a different discipline
Yes.
of guys that would sift through records and say, like, I need instrumental bits to throw to an MC to give them an opportunity to speak their mind and their heart without having to go to a studio and print something fresh. So there's like this beautiful recycling of classics that may have been forgotten. Like, I was listening to Rick Rubin talk about when Run DMC does
Okay.
Walk This Way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, Walk This Way was not a popular song in the hip hop community, but that particular beat, the intro,
Classic.
it's a perfect part of the catalog that everyone goes to. So then you start to dig back further and you see the way that Snoop went to Parliament,
Mm-hmm.
and Snoop gave new life to Parliament. But some artists would feel cheated in the ways that they were used, and it's a hard line to cross as far as what is yours and what is part of the ether once it's out.
Well, I feel like definitely in this day and age, sampling is everyone's sampling the old music. I feel like before the 90s, 2000s, a lot of it was original. A lot of it was just original music. And now we're in the day and age where people are sampling the 2000s or they're sampling the 90s instead of just making something new. We're in the age where we're just recycling what's already worked.
And as a DJ, do you think that's the way forward? Or do you think we're going to come back to a balance of this, a yin and yang of the classics, the samples that we love, and the new material that fills voids there?
At the moment, I feel like it's kind of imbalance. I feel sampling has reached an all-time high. We're sampling the 2000s, we're sampling the 90s, we're sampling the 80s. We're not creating an original sound. And then for the people that are creating an original sound, it's falling into an era of whatever this era is right now, the 20s or the 10s, or excuse me, the 20s.
Yeah, the new roaring 20s, hopefully.
Yes. Which, when I think about it, at the end of the day, I feel when we get into the 30s, we're going to look back at the 20s and we're going to appreciate the 20s because we had this sound, this distinct sound that no other era had. Even though we feel it's repetitive, we're going to find a uniqueness in the sound.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Like, you need distance to be able to adequately describe what that was.
Yes.
And it's so weird. Like, I think DJs were the first to experience what sampling could do for you.
Yes.
And in the ways that sampling is kind of a pair of handcuffs, too. You know, like, there's a lot of great DJs out there that are going to make their own beats and things like that and bring it in as a layer that they want to put an acapella over top of.
Yes.
And they want to have a very unique spin on this. But for musical producers in my kind of world where it's like singer-songwriters, there's so many websites out there where you can get a keys progression that you're paying $5.99 a month just to be able to pull that and write a song to it, which is great. But how many other people are going to use that keys line in the same way that you will?
And when you hear that key line, are you going to know that key line because you've used that key line before?
Yeah, and because it's already out in the ether in that kind of way. Like, one of the things that I'm still trying to find out what I want to do about this predicament, but I'm grateful that I sit here in a space that when I track drums down here, it's going to sound like me in my parents' basement.
Yes.
Which may not be the sexiest thing to describe, but because it's unique to that, I'm more satisfied with that product. I don't want to go somewhere where I take, like it's like recording in Nashville for me. Like, you sound like you recorded that in Nashville versus the rugged aspects of a home studio or the wrong equipment for the right thing. Like, those kind of human mistakes are what we loved about so much music.
I think with that, though, it has that nostalgia of Matt because you're creating in a home studio. But however, you have Nashville Matt over here. This is Nashville Matt. And then you might record in another studio and it might be Toronto Matt over here.
Yeah.
I think it brings out your different styles, and just being in different places brings out a different version of you.
Well, what a great point to make, man. And that kind of makes me wonder, like, as someone that keeps a close eye on artists that have kind of turned the light bulb on, you're like, that's something really unique.
Yes.
Why do you think people want their artists to keep making the same thing? What's the apprehension behind letting artists have different eras and colors of things?
I think we've reached a time where originality is not a thing. We're even seeing it in movies where we're not making original movies anymore. We're making Marvel movies because everyone knows Marvel. We got a whole list of characters. Well, it's the same with music. We got a whole list of music that worked, had an original sound. We just incorporate a little bit of that into this. You got a hit. It's a formula.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. And that kind of thing happens to industries when there's so much money on the line that if you're working at Epic Records or Warner or something like that, you're going to go with the safe bet. This artist in that studio with these 20 songwriters, it's like it is formulaic and it's there for a reason. But maybe that's why the call for artists changes when that comes up. It's like, how many ways could you see a guy, juke somebody in a football game? It's like most of those ways have been invented.
Yes.
Until one guy comes along and says, like, okay, if I want to get around him, I need something that's so outlandishly different. And then the crowd's there for that,
That works, and it's like, wow, genius. I didn't think of that. I don't know why I didn't think of that, but
Yeah, it's the guys that get to the things that feel obvious,
yes.
but it is new.
And we always appreciate the people who think of something new and they were the first. If you were the first to do something, we appreciate you forever. You're a legend.
But sometimes it's, I always heard, I studied marketing in college, and one thing they talk about is like, if you're the first into a new market, you need to be ready to take advantage of what they call blue ocean until number 2 comes in here. Because number 2 has all the advantage of seeing the mistakes you made
Yes.
and copying. So sometimes you get a band like the Beatles that may seem like the first, but they're not the first to do that sound. There's all these bands around them that were the first, but they were the first ones to catch it in that kind of stride.
And do it the right way.
Exactly.
Yes.
That Elvis movie that just came out, the reason that Elvis never got to go international is because he had a manager who didn't have a passport. If Elvis would have gone international, Beatlemania would have been more of Elvis the King taking over. And like,
wow.
And what a weird thing to think about,
Yes.
The international market was available to him, and he got cut off because of a guy.
Unbelievable to think about.
Yeah. Well, and so when you're stepping into an age-old craft of radio personality, and you've seen all the ways that someone else does it, and there's tricks you learn from the vets, what's been your conscious effort to be something brand new?
I feel I'm a voice for the young crowd, the younger crowd. So I try to keep my ear to what the young people are listening to, whether it's doing proms or it's doing homecomings, just keeping an ear to the high school crowd, because the high schoolers are the ones that dictate what we think is cool.
That's a crazy realization to have, man, because we really do write off that body of listeners very quickly.
But they determine what's gonna be cool in this era because they're growing. You got to think the 2000s was cool for us because we were in elementary school and high school, and that was what we grew up listening to, whether it was on the radio, on Spotify. That is the soundtrack basically to our lives because of that nostalgia period. Well, the same high schoolers and the same elementary kids, they're still kids. This is going to be the soundtrack to their life when they are our age, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So just keeping an ear to the high school, the kids, and the kids, just keeping an ear to what the kids like is the biggest thing. Regardless of what we may think, they're going to think we're old in a little bit. So
pretty soon, maybe now.
Yeah.
Well, it's what a great point to make, because kids have a different level of ownership on the things they like.
Yes.
Because you don't get to, drive your own car, have your own apartment, you abide by the rules of the system. When you find art that speaks to you that is new, you claim it, you embody it,
you gravitate,
you copy it. Like,
yes.
Who were the big artists for you at that age that were fresh, that kind of brought you here?
Oh, wow. Oh, man. I can't say the generic artists. I got to think of the ones who were iconic for our time. So, Soulja Boy.
Okay.
Just when
I remember watching you do the Soulja Boy in a couple of minutes.
Crank That was huge. They had 1 million dances. It was the first real big song on YouTube. Mixtapes were a huge thing. Just getting free music. I feel like Soulja Boy was one of the first iconic people in our time period for us. Chief Keef. 2012, 2013. Drill music. It took over. It was a huge thing for a lot of high schoolers, at least my age.
Yeah.
I'll give another one. I would probably have to say T-Pain.
Okay.
He was 18. He's singing about being in the club, even though he's too young to be in the club. Auto-tune was a huge thing. I don't know if you had that auto-tune T-Pain app, but it was a huge thing for me, just auto-tuning myself and acting like I could sing. I think of people who really changed the game when we were kids and in high school. Not the Drakes and the Lil Waynes of the world, or
they were always so big for us at that age. Like when you're talking about something that's new that you do want to own, like you want to be the first one to find Crank That. You want to be the first one to show that to your friends, because that's the beginning of a curator's journey. The first time you show somebody and their mind explodes, and you're watching that and you're like, I want this feeling again.
I've never, and when you hear it brings you back to the time.
Yeah.
It brings you back to you being on that bus or you being in the classroom and it coming on the radio and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Well, how much do you think, especially talking about a homecoming or something like that, how much do you think dance influences where the music sits in our lives?
I think everyone likes to dance and everyone's a dancer at heart. Whether you're embarrassed about your dancing or not, everyone enjoys a good dance when they hear a great song.
And when, there's the category of quote unquote line dances.
Yes.
It's like, old country, but something like Soulja Boy, it's like this was something that we all spent time learning because you didn't want to go to homecoming and be the only one. Exactly. Or something like the wobble where it's like, man, if you're missing out on the wobble, like don't go out for the Cupid shuffle because you're gonna be embarrassed because you're missing out on
the wobble.
Yeah, you're missing out on the good shit. And it's weird that TikTok has re-inspired learning and writing these dances for material that doesn't have it.
I will give these TikTokers, I'll give them credit. Listen, we was, cross your legs, touch your foot, snap. They're doing whole 8 counts now. They're doing 8 counts. Round offs like, bro, we weren't dancing like this. We just weren't. We weren't.
And it's you think like that Harry Styles song that strictly dominates, Instagram right now. Like that's not the most danceable song in the world, but they made something that was so simplistic that people got involved. And I think what most people are missing as a listener is involvement in the music. Like there's something about not being afraid to dance or clap or sing along where you find out why the artist is having so much fun up there.
Especially too when you see people, the artist knows or they get something that other people can be involved in. It brings more energy into the room because they have something to look forward to versus just a random song being played.
Well, one thing that I think was monumental in the last, 2 years that's so different for all of us looking back on music was the Super Bowl.
Yes.
To have, for the first time, mashups in the Super Bowl halftime show.
Crazy.
Where, maybe the Stones have enough material to run that whole show down, but in my opinion, like, Maroon 5 didn't have everything I wanted from that. They weren't classic enough. And Dr. Dre came in and said, I'm going to give you a little bit of everything you loved from this. And for generations that may have been apprehensive towards Dre and his whole lineage of beautiful music, once they watched that show during, the most watched TV event of the year, they all remembered those songs and felt included in it.
It catered to every generation.
Yes, it was our halftime show. Except for 50 being upside down. Why
I have no clue why 50 Cent was upside down. Dude, he looked big, too.
He did look big. He looked jacked in a way where it was like, man, I don't know what kind of testosterone you're taking, but it's the wrong kind. Like, no neck.
He had to get ready for the Super Bowl, so,
Facts.
Quick pump.
Now, my favorite moment of this, and this is just because this is probably the biggest artist for me in the last couple of years, Anderson .Paak being out there.
Yes.
Coming out on a kit and playing this supportive role for the veterans that mean the world to him.
I was about to say, just to even be featured, regardless of if you're playing the drums or not, which he did a fantastic drum. Side note, have you watched his tiny desk?
That was the first thing I saw of his.
Wow.
It's so different from the hip hop that we grew up with because it is all organic instrumentation.
Yes.
And as someone that loves hearing a drum kit be the right thing, to hear it be the guy who's bringing the music forward, the vocalist, the songwriter, the drums speak in a new way, like Heart Don't Stand a Chance, or of course Come Down. Mm-hmm. It's like these things had a different energy from the get of that performance, and I've never been the same. Like Malibu as an album fucked my life up. It's so good.
I'm I'm just ecstatic at the fact that he could play the drums while singing at
Yeah.
the same time and still keep the rhythm of everything going on while still just iconic.
Yeah. And he's not just a hip hop drummer. Like, he's a jazz head. He likes rock music. He likes
Yeah.
the classic R&B, and he's doing something so powerful by being an instrumentalist in the artistic game. Like I'm sure you listen to that Silk Sonic album.
Yes, absolutely.
Silk Sonic has awoken this level of nostalgic funk that I feel like we were all primed to go look at. But the thing about funk music is it's not a sample. It's a groove. It's a groove you hold on to the whole time, man.
Originality.
Yeah.
On top of just playing that smooth music.
Yeah.
Bringing the dance back to people. People want to get on the floor and just move.
Yeah. Well, I think as a Cincinnati kid, to see Bootsy's involvement on that album, just as a character,
Yes.
it starts off Bootzilla, master of the universe, man. Like, that's a heavy thing to say about a guy who is considered an old head by a lot of people, and even in Cincinnati, probably doesn't get the love he necessarily deserves.
He definitely should.
Yeah.
Absolutely should.
Yeah, and you take that back to Bootsy is playing in James Brown band when you get all those great samples. Like, that was the pocket that we all learned to live by. So now when artists pay homage, it's not steal a groove and sample it.
Yeah.
It's bring that dude on and give him the sexiest verse of all time. You know what I mean? Like, I forget the track that he's really on the Silk Sonic album, but all of his cameos in that are so brilliant to Bootsy.
It's not Skate. I literally last night.
Yes.
Last night is the song.
After last night.
Oh, sucky now.
It's all so tasty, and you make him a hero once again, and like that's what we are called to do for our heroes, is to make sure that they are not forgotten in that bit of time.
You are a legend for this reason, which is why we can bring you back and you just still flow in a whole new era effortlessly.
Yeah. Now, is there any material from that album that's really made its way into your set?
Oh, absolutely.
Which particular ones?
Can't go wrong with After Last Night. Skate definitely depends on the event that I'm doing. Smoking Out the Window, of course. Couldn't be left off.
The music video for that shit is so clean.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
Leave the Door Open, that's it's timeless. Those are just the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
It's crazy that you say that, because I feel exactly the same. It's material that came out and was immediately timeless.
Yes.
And you mentioned Skate. What I found really odd about Skate is, like, this was nostalgic in a weird way, that it could bring up the roller disco again. Like, it could bring something back that was, it's like dancing. You go to like a skate hall like that, and the music's going, and you get to be in motion, and you get to be with your friends, and you interact with the music in that kind of a way.
It's happy.
Yeah.
You can easily feel when they were making this music that they were happy while they were doing it.
Yeah. Dude, or 777.
Yes.
Like, there's no better casino song till the end of time than that.
Never misses.
Yeah. Well, it makes me really look forward to artists of that caliber. For Bruno and Anderson to get together. Is it necessary? No. Are they making more money doing things on their own?
Yes.
Probably. But instead, they're like,
the culture needed this.
Yes.
Yes.
And they found something in each other that musically brought it out in such a different way, man.
I'm telling you, it's a timeless album. We're going to look back at this 10 years from now, and it's going to age beautifully.
I definitely agree with that. And I hope there's more to come from that genre.
Yeah.
I think there's so much to be squeezed out of this, that hopefully we continue to turn back to that album for inspiration, that kind of a way.
It's only going to get better.
Yeah. Now, one thing I would love to ask you about, like, being a kid that you're playing drums in church, just because you're asked to or because you want to, like, it's such an earlier inspiration, but it's pure in that.
Yes.
Does that affect your scratch game at all these days?
Oh, not at all.
Really?
Not at all.
So how do you approach scratching as a younger DJ?
I would say it's more of repetition. It's like crossing a ball over a million times. You just get used to the rhythm. You want to cross left, cross right. It's the same as scratching. You got to scratch left, scratch right, or crab scratch. It's
Tell me
doing
what you mean by
motions in your head.
crab scratch.
So like you're taking the fader
Yeah.
and you're trying to keep the fader from moving, and with this finger, as you're moving it over, this finger is keeping it from coming all the way over. So it's making a
Oh,
crab-like sound.
interesting.
It's a whole bunch of different techniques all in one, but I attribute it to like playing basketball.
Yeah.
When you think of it as a sport, it makes it a lot easier to compartmentalize it.
Yeah. Well, for a guy that's great on the mic, I'm sure
Yes.
you do well in your live sets and that. I hear the musicianship and the emotion when guys scratch well.
Yes.
And that's one of those things about a DJ set that I respect that you have all the hits to go to, but I'm here to hear you.
Yeah.
I want to hear your equivalent of a guitar solo. And when these guys have like a single vocal, like an ah or something like that, and they scratch with it, it's like you're doing so much with so little, and it's so beautiful, man.
It really adds to your artistic ability. It's bringing something. Yeah, you're playing music, and yeah, when you're DJing, you're DJing. But when you start scratching, it adds a whole nother layer on top of it, and then scratching done beautifully.
Yeah. Now, where'd you go to learn that kind of thing?
Practice myself. Learning from different DJs. I feel every DJ should have a DJ sensei, not somebody that's like older, or somebody that is older, but someone that's been in the game for a while. For that, that's my cousin, DJ Marky G. Some of my big homies that I've worked at radio stations with in Cleveland, like DJ Ryan Wolf, DJ Steph Floss, Corey Grand, DJ K Nice. They all just give tools, different tricks that worked for them, things that they did. And a lot of them are great scratchers. They sound great when they're doing it. So they're giving me what worked for them. And I hear how good they sound. So I know it's just what you have to do. It's a formula.
Yeah. And like you said, you spend that time, practicing your crossover,
Yes.
these moments of, well, it's so interesting the reason I ask about drumming compared to that is because it's the same thing as working on your hi-hats.
Yes.
And why this combination, not that kind combination. It's like a groove is like stretching a rubber band where this hand is always going to be the one, but you can expand the bar and give people that little bit of discomfort like we were talking about, because music is consonance and dissonance. You want to
Yes.
feel a little bit off, and then we snap back, and it's like that is the ultimate relief, man.
And it puts you right back. It puts you in the perspective of what's actually going on.
Now, did you start on a more all-included table, like a smaller Pioneer set, or did you have tables in your life?
I started from a very, very small table. A NV2. It was very small. All of the DJ stuff came on one board. Had really small little turntables on it.
Yeah.
That's what I started rocking on, figuring it out, just putting together DJ stuff. Then I think a year later, I moved up to a NS7.
Cool.
It was a bigger turntable. It was heavy as hell.
Dude,
but
those things are bricks.
it's literally the case for it itself was heavy. I rocked on an NS7 for about 2 to 3 years. I literally put the miles on that turntable. The DJ turntable literally warped on it.
No fucking way.
I put some miles in on
like
it.
the internal body of it?
Yes. Yes. Had to get another turntable, and then I moved on to the big boy stuff. I moved on to a Pioneer S7 and a Rain 12 turntable, 2 Rain 12 turntables.
Cool. And did you like getting into the gear side of that? Or
Absolutely.
yeah. It's so, equipment is such a different kind of beautiful thing that only musicians really understand.
Yes.
Or honestly, like people that work in construction. It's like, how often do you step up to bat with these tools and make something beautiful?
Yes.
And then you start to admire that this guy has this tool to do this. It's like not every job needs a hammer. Not every job needs the NS7. You have to make this jump to get this kind of feeling out of it, man.
So I do need more equipment now.
Yeah.
So I can keep my turntables at home. I'm thinking I'm going to get another just little small board to just take out and only bring the turntables out for weddings or big gigs. How many? You have a lot of guitars, right?
Yeah, I probably have 10 guitars in my life. And I try to, yeah, everyone gets in the gear obsession, and
Yeah.
I don't want to buy anything that I'm gonna sell anymore.
Yeah.
If I'm buying a guitar, it's got to be a lifer.
I don't understand how people sell their old gear,
Yeah.
especially stuff that you've literally went to work with. Even if it's collecting dust there, you know all of the miles you've logged with
Yeah.
this one thing that you have.
Because when Grandpa wants to show that warped ass NS7, it's like, look at this hole I put in this thing. Like Willie Nelson's guitar he plays, it's called Trigger.
Yeah.
It has huge holes all around this thing. It's reinforced on the inside, but like you feel his mileage.
That's how you know he was getting busy.
Yes,
on it.
straight up.
And that's exactly what I want from all of my gear. As I use it, as it ages on with me, as I continue to get more and more gear,
Yeah.
I want it to age with me.
Yeah. Well, it's so different though for DJs and drummers where a lot of clubs will say, okay, we're going to backline the hardest equipment to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be comfortable enough to walk up to a new table.
Any table.
Yeah, and make it work.
Yep.
And not all tables are created equal.
Definitely is the case. On top of that, you got to know the basics.
Mm.
You have to know the basics of just being a good DJ, being able to blend, being able to put together two songs, regardless of what the equipment is, just knowing your equipment, knowing the basis of your general equipment. I'm sure you could get on any guitar, regardless of if it's tuned or not tuned, but you have your basics and you can put something together.
And you learn what that equipment kind of wants you to do with it. Like, it's hard to personify these things, but once you spend enough time on a table, you realize like the way it has warped a little bit to your hand.
Yeah.
That's what home feels like, man.
Yes.
Like the first time I wore down a pair of frets on a guitar, like I got new frets put on it, but it feels like it's affirmation that you're putting your time in. And your ability to hop onto equipment that's not yours and find out what it wants to do
Immediately.
It's a special thing, man.
1,000 hours or 10,000 hours. You have to put your 10,000 hours in.
Yeah. So how much has your day-to-day listening life changed since you started being in the game of I'm managing 2 to 4 cues at a time, trying to think of how we jump to the next song?
I wouldn't say I think about it like that. I feel when being musically inclined, you can think about a lot of things that are happening all simultaneously, but you're not really putting much thought into it because you just understand it. More like music theory in a sense. You understand, if you understand where your buttons are, you understand what's going on, it's hard to fail at times.
You're saying it's hard to fail it?
It's hard to fail what I mean by that in the aspects of you understand your equipment or any baseline equipment that unless it's circumstances from equipment or just some unforeseen circumstances with your equipment, it's hard to mess up what you're doing.
Yeah. No, I definitely get that. And it's like, me and my fiance were talking about this last night. She dabbles on a couple instruments and enjoys it, but she'd always said before that she couldn't play by ear.
Yeah.
And yesterday she's like, for the first time I was starting to play things based on my expectations of where it goes.
Yep.
And it's some people are born with perfect pitch, and that's an incredible endowment and blessing in your life. But when it comes to just listening, like as you listen more intently, you get expectations about where the music goes.
Yes.
And when we're all coming from the same catalog, like if you grew up listening to Quincy Jones, Michael, you can expect the strings during the second verse to come in, and we're starting to get these lifts. And those kind of things are what formulates the next generation of music, you have primed our expectations to redefine their expectations,
We all musically understand that it's supposed to be here, but then something in your brain rewired it to put it right here, and right here, and it's going to bring this sound, but it's going to sound nice.
Yes. And it's so cool when you're even surprised that it worked.
Yeah.
Those aha moments, like There's no drug that'll ever give you that feeling.
No.
Like, and if they make it, then I'm out the game. You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
that's it.
I know exactly what that feeling. I can't describe it, but I know exactly what feeling you're talking about, and I think that's my favorite part.
Yeah.
About being a DJ and being a creator.
Man, let's look at the opposite side of that coin. What was it like the first couple times you felt a flop? We were on the bandstand and they don't go with it. You have to pivot quick.
Yeah.
You have to think on your feet, and you walk out of a set saying, fuck, that wasn't it, you know?
My whole first year of DJing was, man, are you sure you really want to do
Tell me the
this?
worst, please.
Ooh, the worst. The worst had to be the very first party I ever did, and it was a house party.
Nice.
It was horrendous. I had no idea how the equipment worked. I was just simply happy to have DJ equipment. Whole bunch of people come over for a party. At this point, I think being a DJ is playing my favorite songs that I like to hear. At this time I might be listening to like Wiz Khalifa and I have no idea what I was listening to. Future, Drake, but I thought songs that I enjoyed were songs that were going to be songs that other people would enjoy. Rude awakening when you're DJing and people are just standing around looking at you or even heckling you and physically telling you that you're not good.
Yeah, the heckling's hard, man. And like, it. You played at a higher level than I did, but when it comes to basketball, I think the worst moment in the game is you're on the free throw line, looking at the student section of the other team,
Yes.
and you're dealing with, just some people talking shit, and you need to keep your composure. And if you miss that first one, how do you resettle the mind to go back into that? It's such a tough thing.
You got to lock in.
Yeah, man.
You got to lock in.
It's unbelievable to think of how much that may have primed you, though, for this life of being on stage and saying, if that's not what they want, then this is what they want. If that's not what they want, then this is what they want.
I think it all comes back to sports at the end of the day. Just from being heckled in sports and being able to take that heckling in DJing, it's pay it no mind, lock into what you're doing, because only you can do it at the best effort, and you're only battling yourself.
Yeah.
So when you're only battling yourself, nothing else matters. You can block out all of that other energy.
Yeah, man. And to have that kind of internal competitive drive is something I would say you can't teach to people. You have to find what makes you hungry in this life. And it's so cool to see someone who you had what made you hungry, you had what made you want to be a competitor, and something in life said, you're not going to be able to do this anymore. And you said, well, I didn't lose that fire, so what are we doing next?
Yes.
And it's very inspiring for so many people to hear someone like yourself where you had the ball on a string and the world in your hands and good things coming down the line, and something you can't change is part of your life now.
I would say, just for majority of people out there, no, you're not going to always be dealt a great hand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's how you get back up and take on challenges, how you face adversity is what life is really about. And being able to overcome adversity is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and enjoy it in times, man. Like, there's such great art to be made in times where you're hurt. And like one of my favorite bartenders passed away the other day.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
It's, like you said, life deals people very different hands. And you question what it's like when you lose a friend because to some extent, they don't even know they're gone. They go to the next level of this. And in my heart, I believe there's something after this life where now my friend is lighter than air and always here. And when I choose to speak to him, he speaks back and I can listen to that. But when life moves you, for better, for worse, to be creators with the outlet that we have, it's a calling. So it's 5:30 in the morning. I'm crying my eyes out. It's like the only place I know to go with this is into a song.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote the grief of my heart into a song that I can revisit whenever I want to think of him. But I don't need to carry this on my shoulders anymore.
Because you place that
exactly
in a box right here, and you can hold on to that and revisit it exactly when you want to.
Yeah, man. That's a blessing that I wish everyone could have. That's why when I see people say that they're playing music and they're not writing songs or they're not putting their own in, it's like, listen, no one's ever going to sound like you, even if you sound like shit. And you're not the best judge of what you sound like.
Yeah.
It's just about stepping up to bat again.
Continuing, taking that next swing, that next shot. It's 100%. It's not about the shot you're shooting right now. It's about the next one.
Yeah, man. There was one thing that I wanted to ask you, and I'm spacing it at this point, but it's so good to get to connect with you again, and to be able to, the beginning of this is seeing you online and seeing that Dahmere is now DJ Easy. He has this whole thing going on that's so resonant to me because this is what I spend my life doing as well.
But I could also relate the same thing back to you. Just Matt is now Matt Waters. He's somebody out in this world who he still the same guy that I saw in grade school who was just happy to be singing, doing something else that didn't involve being involved with sports and being happy doing it, just being himself and still being himself to this very day.
Yeah, man. And it all started because we're eating potatoes at Coach Luck's.
Yeah. Those potatoes were fire. Absolutely fire.
I don't think that's not how you bulk up, man. Those are
those
aren't the carbs you need.
You just wanted to give us potatoes, 100%.
You just wanted to kick it for a little bit, man. I get that too. It's crazy when you, now that we're both adults, you look at that younger generation as a very different thing, and it's cool that you have such a great respect for their tastes in that, and also you play the supportive role of, I'm gonna step into your homecoming, a night that guaranteed you will never forget, for better for worse, and I'm gonna try to give you the soundtrack of that. That's a crazy undertaking.
These years, we take all of it for granted. These are some of the best years of some people's life. They'll remember it forever.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, God forbid, may or may not make it past this year. It happens every year, but you just have to take every day and live to the best of your abilities.
Yeah, and it's cool when you get to be the soundtrack to it.
Yes.
Like I was talking to someone the other day about music is kind of, you can actively listen to music. You can close your eyes and really try to get into the booth with whoever's singing to you. But most of the time, it's on in the background. And it's that kind of nostalgic feeling of like when I walk through the Kenwood Mall and Christmas music's on, I can feel like I'm 7 again, But when I hear Soulja Boy, I think back to being that kid in an 8th grade mixer who still didn't know those moves. Like the way that it becomes the framework of your memory. It's like when you taste your mom's cooking or something like that. It's a straight shot back home.
That nostalgia.
Yeah,
it hits home.
What would you say is the greatest responsibility of this new part of your life?
I would say it's being a role model to the younger generation. Using my story, the things that has happened to me as, hey, I had to fight adversity, but I'm still here fighting. And I feel that a lot of people could relate to what I am doing, how I did it, because it's stuff that every individual athlete, a lot of athletes are going through every single day, and they're looking for another way or another outlet to gravitate their life into. I feel that just my story needs to be heard, and a lot of people need to hear what is happening and the good that is happening. And hey, I'm doing it, and I'm a normal person just like you, and you can do it too.
So when it comes to your heart condition, was it all cardio activity was aggravating it? Like, what are you able to do now to stay in good shape and keep up with yourself?
I'm still able to play just recreationally. I played in a Smith League this summer. It was a fun time. I'm out of shape. Definitely don't need to do that again. Realized I'm done with sports. Okay, folks, sports is just, we're done. We're done with sports. But I still work out. Still go to the gym. The way I was pushing myself back then, we're working out before school. We're going to school, and then after school, we're doing a workout, and we're working out until about 9 o'clock. We're hitting the gym in the morning, and we're pushing weight. It's too much. It was too much on my body. And then on top of that, we're running. We're trying to keep up the cardio so that we can be in shape when we're out there running and playing basketball. I just think I was doing too much at the time. But now I don't really do not nearly as much as I was. And I think it's great for me.
Yeah. When you watch something like the Bengals game the other day where there's this, this huge tragedy that relates to something somewhat similar where it's a miracle that our hearts are beating right now.
Absolutely.
You got to respect that.
Pray for Dahmere Hamlin.
Facts.
That story really hits home for me. Just the simple fact that he had a chest issue. I don't know if he had a heart murmur or not, but the fact that his beat just went irregular and then he got up and fell back down to the ground. My doctor, my cardiologist, he told me that exact scenario right there is something that could have happened to me. And just seeing it happen not only to someone in prime time, but in Cincinnati, it's just chilling. It's very chilling.
Yeah, and it's it's a miracle if you make it to the top level with things you haven't had a career-ending injury. But so many people, like my mother, who we were just chatting with, she has a long list of cardio-related issues in her life, and just like yourself, it's a reminder to live well and live happily and do the things that you're supposed to do. But none of us ever get to decide when those problems arise and take something from you. If they take the whole thing from you, they take the whole thing. But, we all need to be a little bit more considerate towards the vehicle and what it lets us do every single day. If you're not waking up and making the most of this body, then what is life, man?
And we're still human beings. We only get to see the prime time or what happened, but we're not going to see the after effects of how Dahmere Hamlin is actually living, if he's able to live, if he's just capable to be a normal person again. Like we just simply don't know. But I absolutely wish the best for the young man. It's just it's really chilling.
Yeah, and we saw something powerful when two teams say, this may be the biggest game in the world right now. That is nothing compared to our brother and our friend
losing a brother, a friend, a family member.
Yeah,
that doesn't compare.
Yeah,
we can make that up, but we can't make up Dahmere Hamlin again.
Yeah, man. Well, within all that, it's sports are a reason to come together.
Yeah,
not to push apart. Like I play every Sunday down the Banks,
okay.
And they had a rally going on for the Bills fans down there. And I'm happy to see these people come as tourists to our town to go into our bars to have a good-ass time. And when I see some of our less classy Bengals fans coming down there trying to shit on their parade, trying to cause a fight, I'm like, man, you have no idea what this game is for, do you? It's like this is supposed to be a joyful thing, and you're coming down here and running your mouth like you're going on the field on Monday football.
They're spectators just like you. Just be kind. Be kind and courteous to them.
Did you experience anything like that when you were working with the Cavs?
I wouldn't say I really experienced anybody heckling. I would say most people were kind unless you were a Warriors fan.
Damn.
Then I don't know about that one. But most people, they were kind.
Yeah.
Kind and courteous at Cavaliers games.
Yeah. I think, like, if you're going to spend the money to go to one of these events and have a good time, like, you should have a good time. Like, do not let any rhyme or reason put you in a mood to be that fan,
Or that fan to the other person where you're antagonizing the other fan back.
Yeah.
It's a give and take on both sides.
Yeah. Now, like, the other side of the coin to me is, like, every once in a while I still play in a rec basketball league.
Ooh.
And I love running my mouth. Like, I ain't that
Got
good.
to.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, if I'm guarding you, like, I'm going to be saying shit the whole time. Because I had to play the mental
bucket,
game. Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't. No. I'm giving you a bucket, brother. You're going to hear about it.
Yeah. And I think part of that, we all need a little go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
But it should be dependent on your actions, not other people.
You got to be able to take it, too, just as much as you're giving it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm scared to take it, man, because these guys are bigger than me and better than me most of the time. It's just like I'm just running my mouth, though.
But you're still out there, though. You're still giving buckets, and if you're scoring, it doesn't even matter.
Big facts. Big facts. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on today. And is there anything that you would like to add in conclusion to this?
Matt, I just want to say you're doing fantastic stuff.
Thank you.
You're continuing to go and go up, and most importantly, you're still doing what I've seen you've been doing for forever, and I love that. I want you to continue to rise up, continue to climb up the mountain. I only hope you get bigger, and I only wish nothing but more and more success for you, your family, your friends, and everybody around you.
Back at you, bro. DJ Easy 101.1 The Wiz. Check him out.
Appreciate
What are
you,
your
brother.
hours?
I am on the radio Saturday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We got the new at 2 where I am spinning hits, vibes, all of that. I'm also on in Cleveland. If you are in Cleveland, check me out 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. I'm playing hits, vibes. It's the after party. That's what it's called. And, you can find me on social media at EZ is everything. Real simple. I'm a neighborhood guy, my guy. And
Hit him up, y'all. Hit him up, my man.
My brother, Matt. Thank you so much for having me, brother.
Thank you, bro. Thanks for coming. DJ Easy, make sure you find him online, everybody, at Easy is Everything. Check out his shows on 101.1 The Wiz, as well as some of the other Cleveland stations that he mentioned. And check out one of his live gigs. He is one of the most personable and kind folks that I've had the pleasure of knowing in my life, and it was great to reconnect with him. So make sure you hit subscribe, hit like if you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more episodes. Peace, y'all.